Let's get rowdy.
Hey guys, I'm going to welcome you back to the Rob Griffin Show. I am your host, Rob Griffin. Thank you so much for being here. And let me tell you, I do not take your listenership for granted. I know there's tons of podcasts out there you can listen to, tons of videos on YouTube and Rumble and anywhere you want to gather your content. But the fact that you're here with me right now, it means a lot to me. And I want to say thank you very humbly. For those of you who know me, I've been podcasting for years, but I decided to do a solo venture with this show. And I wanted to give you gritty, gripping topics that made you think. And today's episode is not going to be any different. We're going to have some really fun stuff for you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit back. Most of you know that I was a police officer, or rather police detective, in the great little city called Henderson, Nevada. Now, if you've never been there, for many years it was the fastest growing city in America. We're surrounded by golf courses and swimming pools and beautiful green parks. In fact, there's one part of Henderson they call Green Valley, because it's lined with trees and parks. It's just gorgeous, and the climate is great. Most of the time during the year, the weather is phenomenal. During the summer, from I'd say late June to late August, it gets a little brutal. I remember those days when I was a patrol officer wearing a dark blue uniform, working an accident. We call them 401s in Nevada, or in Henderson. They have 400 codes. I remember one day working an accident that it got so freaking hot that when I went back to the station to take my boots off to change, I went to go pull my boot off, and literally the heel of the boot peeled off because the glue in my boot had melted, standing on 120 plus degree asphalt. So it gets a little rough there. If you can handle the heat during the summer, you're really going to love that town. Now, we actually we lie in the shadow of a bigger city, one called Las Vegas, Nevada, which is unmistakable. Everybody in the United States, I would even say around the world, knows about Vegas. It is one of the coolest cities in America to visit. I don't mean to say that in a negative way. I don't know about living there, about raising children there. Because if you're looking for trouble in Vegas, I'm going to promise you, you can find it. They don't call it Sin City for nothing. I have stories for days. I mean, I worked as a patrol officer, as a detective. I worked undercover for several years. I'm going to tell you, man, in that town, there's a whole lot of crazy shit that happens every day, every weekend. And if you want to hear more of those stories, just stay tuned. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show, because there's a lot more stories coming your way. Anyway, I'm going to tell you about one particular day that had to do with some crazy stuff that happened. In fact, a good friend of mine, the one and only Sam Newman, he lives in Boulder City, Nevada, a former police officer himself. He actually came to do a ride along with me that day. Now, if you've ever done a ride along with a police officer, if you've heard my other episodes, I strongly suggest that you do. Go contact your local police department, fill out a form, they make you sign a little waiver, go do a ride along. You're going to learn what it's like to be a police officer. You're going to learn what it's like a day in the life of a police officer, and you're going to see and deal with all the crazy shit they have to deal with. And it might make you rethink this whole defund the police and anti-cop stuff that a lot of people are screaming out there right now. But I would strongly suggest go do a ride along. So anyway, Sam comes with me, and what happens more often than not is the ride along curse, right? Like literally you get in the car with a patrol officer. They say, hey, here's what you do. I want you to fasten your seatbelt. And if they're a really cool officer, they'll tell you, hey, man, if I get into some shit where I'm in trouble, I might need your help. Push this little button right here. It pops out my AR-15. God forbid I'm dying. I want you to help me, right? And I usually told all my ride-alongs that, and they were like, oh, wow, really? Yeah, like that'd be kind of neat. But hope and pray that never happens. And luckily for me, it never did. But anyway, we give them a little ride-along speech. We tell them what the protocol means. If there is a crazy call, I'd have to drop you off, meaning shots fired, life in danger. I can't take you there. But more often than not, you're coming with me everywhere I go. You're going to see and experience everything I see. And that's the whole beauty of the ride along process. So anyway, more often than not, ride alongs are boring. Very little happens, especially if you work day shift. Like I worked day shift for a couple of years, from 7 to like, what was that, 7 to 3 or 4, whatever it was. Typically boring, paper calls. Not a whole lot happens in during day shift. Usually, sometimes it gets a little crazy. If you work swing shift, which is what I did the majority of my career, from 2 to midnight, boy, you're gonna be thrown into some of the craziest shit you ever seen in your life. Graveyard is great. Graveyard usually starts at 10 a.m. Sorry, 10 p.m. and goes to 6 a.m. And you'll see a lot of crazy from like 11 to 2. And then after that, most of the normal people go to bed. But anyway, Sam comes to me on a ride along that day shift, which is usually boring. And our first call right out of the date was not even a call. We were driving down Sunset Boulevard. I'm sure you remember this, Sam. And we see this dude driving by Braille. He was totally hammered. A DUI in progress. In Vegas, by the way, at those hours, 50% of the vehicles are intoxicated. So it's not that hard to find or arrest a DUI. But by the way, probably one of the most pain in the ass reports you'll ever take is a DUI. There's multiple forms you got to fill out and all this stuff, and it's the most adjudicated case in the United States of America, which means you're probably not even going to win, even if you do everything right. I shouldn't say you're not going to win. You probably will win, but it's going to be a headache. But anyway, this guy tries to run from me, tries to lose me in a parking lot. We end up arresting this guy. Great little case. Hook him up, tow his vehicle, and we're down the road, right? And then we have a couple other boring calls. And then we had a 405, which in the Vegas world is a suicide, or I say Henderson 405 code means suicide. Do a Google search, Henderson Police Department 400 codes, and they'll give you an entire list. It starts at 401, goes up to a very long list. But anyway, we get sent to a 405, which was a suicide, and it was one of the sad ones. This guy was terminally ill, and honestly, people say you shouldn't ever do suicide, and I agree. But this guy was terminally ill with a brutal cancer diagnosis, and I want to say it's okay, but I kind of understand. And I walk into the house, and he was in the restroom, and an obvious GSW or a gunshot wound that he had placed a pistol in his mouth, and it's pretty bad. If you've ever seen one of those, you know what I'm talking about. I hope and pray you never see one, because it's scarring. You'll never forget it. In fact, if I close my eyes, I can see it right now. And Sam was my ride along. Sorry, he came with me. It was awkward because he's like, damn. You could see the disgust and the shock and the awe on his face. And I said, all right, don't worry about it, man. Go wait in the car. I fill out my report. We call in the coroner. All the stuff we normally do, right? And then we're tooling around, and we get sent to a call later. But before I get into the call of what happened, in fact, the reason why this episode is titled, "Ma'am, please stop trying to slice your own throat." It's because there was some context behind this. Okay, this I say young lady, she was probably in her late 40s. She had just moved from New York, and she was living in Las Vegas. She happened to be a 9/11 widower, meaning her husband was in the World Trade Center when that jet hit the towers. And if you don't remember this, it was September 11, 2001, approximately around 7:40 a.m. or 5:40 a.m. for me in Las Vegas when this happened. There were a bunch of terrorists led by a young man. I say young man, I'll call him a piece of shit, scumbag, shithead, terrorist by the name of Muhammad Atta. He's in the upper right-hand corner, who was leading this band of miscreants to go out and kill Americans. And they literally boarded and flew 2 planes right into the Twin Towers in New York, and ultimately killed over 3,000 American citizens. And I say Americans from every walk of life: white, black, Hispanics, Asians. They didn't care what race you were, what pronouns you had. They were there to kill us. This amazing experiment of a country called the United States of America, I say the greatest country on planet Earth, and they hated us just because of who we are. And they decided to fly these planes into the World Trade Center and take out thousands of people. Now, one of my friends that I met, man, it's been a while, man. Ralph Franco, I love you, man. And he's a cameraman for a TV station in New York. He just happened to capture part of this on film while he was there shooting some, let's say, probably a normal day at work for a news cameraman. I'm not trying to belittle it at all, but he was there filming a scene, and something amazing happened. He was there. He was with his reporter filming some normal, daily news, and he just happened to tilt his camera up and capture one of those jets flying into the World Trade Center when the first jet hit the first tower. Now, for those of you who are listening to the audio, you're only going to hear jet engines and a loud explosion and some people yelling, "Oh shit, oh shit." But for those who are watching this on YouTube or on Rumble or wherever you're watching this from, you're going to actually see the video. And it is jaw dropping. It is, I'm just at a loss for words because it was so impactful for my life. I will never forget it as long as I live. Like that morning, I had a good friend of mine that called me, Rosario. He calls me at it was like 5:45 a.m. Where I lived in Vegas. And he goes, and I go, why are you calling me so early? He goes, bro, we're at war. We're being attacked. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? It's not even 6 o'clock in the morning yet. I turned on the news and I was glued to the TV for the entire rest of the day, as I'm sure many of you were who were alive when that happened. So I'm gonna play the video for you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. You can see it. For those of you on audio, go find us on YouTube or Rumble so you can see the video. I'm gonna do that right now, and then I'll be right back.
Did we get on that? I had one.
Okay, so that's pretty graphic video, and anyone who was on that plane, the terrorists, the passengers, I mean, their life was over in an instant. And that was just the beginning of the carnage of what happened next. So several minutes later, the second plane hit that tower too. And we all know the story. We watched it live on television. And literally 3,000 plus Americans died that day. And I remember thinking, man, this is the most horrible thing in American history. And I'm watching it live on television. And it was sad, it was depressing. But the one thing that was positive, if there was a positive in any of this, it was the few days after that. I remember watching entire neighborhoods flying the American flag. I have never seen the U.S. population more galvanized than they were that day, or that week rather, or days after the event. We saw neighborhoods for miles flying the U.S. flag, and they didn't care if you were white, black, Hispanic, Asian, gay, bisexual, normal. No one cared. Everybody cared was we were all American at that moment. Now, do I ever want another 9/11 to come to our country again? Of course not. I don't. I don't want people to die or get hurt. But I really long for the days that we were so united or galvanized like we were on that day. It was something pretty special in spite of this horrific event where thousands of people were lost. And I'm sad even today thinking about it. 20 plus years later, it still affects me like it does that day. And I would ask you to never forget. Never forget. So anyway, I'm going to fast forward to the rest of this ride along, right? So literally, my buddy Sam and I are driving in my patrol car, and I get a call. A simple call. Let's call it a 405Z, which is Henderson talk for an attempted suicide. Now I'm thinking, okay. By the way, these happen almost daily in Henderson and Las Vegas, Nevada. We are top 10 in the suicides in the United States of America. People come to Vegas or Henderson and they think they're going to make it big. They're going to make all this money. They're going to bet and gamble and they're going to be super successful and they're going to be millionaires. Sad reality is when they get there, that's not the case, man. They don't keep building these massive casinos because everybody is winning. In fact, most of you come to Vegas / Henderson and you lose your shirt and we thank you for it or they thank you for it because of your losses in the casino and the gazillions of dollars a casino is making, the property taxes in Nevada are quite low. So the locals there love you. In fact, most of them are employed in the gaming industry, and your losses pay their property taxes. So they're going to take pretty good care of you as long as you're handing them a dollar or two. Now, the city itself, probably not that friendly to the locals, but for the tourist, man, we absolutely loved you in Las Vegas because you paid our property taxes and you made our life a little less complicated and kept us employed. Anyway, now we're on this ride along. I'm going to this 405Z, and all I know really is the caller, or we call it the person calling, had reported that there was a female on scene that had a razor blade, and they didn't really describe it in detail, and was actively trying to hurt herself. And that's all I had. And I didn't really know what this call was going to entail, and I will omit the names to protect the people involved. But I roll up on this scene. It's probably 3 p.m. ish, something like that. My shift, I have to go back to the station at 4. So I was actually not happy to get this call. For one, I didn't want to deal with the carnage. And number two, it's just another report, another DR I have to write. But anyway, we roll up to the house. I tell my ride along, Sam, I go, hey, man, stay with me unless I tell you otherwise. Now, I pull up into the driveway. There's 2 people standing outside. A young lady appears to be in her 20s, a young man, similar age, and there's a really sexy sports car in the front. I say sexy now. Today it wouldn't be that sexy. Back then it was pretty cool. I think it was one of those Crossfires. Anybody know what that is? Anyway, I pull up to the house and I see the car. I see this what I didn't know if it was a couple or what have you. A young female, 20-something, a male, 20-something outside. And the female yells at me and she goes, my mom's in there. She's trying to kill herself. She's trying to hurt herself. Can you go help her, please? And I go, that's why we're here. You stay out here. Don't come in the house. Let me go deal with this. Now, my buddy Rosario's on my back, like, not my back, literally. You know what? Following me, right? So I walk up to the front door, I kick open the door, and I see this lady. Now, I don't know her name. I don't remember her name, and I don't want to remember her name because I would not certainly put her story out like this. But I see her standing in the living room. And I'm trying to remember exactly. It was like a 2-story house. It almost felt like there was a sunken living room. Like I come through steps and it's a little drop down to get there. And I see her and she's, her makeup is running. Like you ever see like women cry? They have this black stuff pouring down their face. And she's got a freaking straight razor in her hand. You ever see those straight razors? Like the kind you know, at the barbershop where they like cut your beard with this like wickedly sharp blade. And she's just yelling at me. Like, kill me, shoot me, kill me, shoot me. And I'm like, what? And I'm trying to process this as she grabs this razor. She has it in her, I can't remember what hand. And she just like literally starts going like this. Whack, whack. She hits her wrist and she switches hands, does it on the other side. And then she grabs a razor and she goes, whack. And I remember watching. Damn, man. I remember watching the side of her neck just open up and fillet like a raw piece of fish you hit with a sharp knife. But it wasn't just opening, it was squirting. And she's just literally slashing at her neck, at her arms, multiple times. And I'm screaming at her. Now, can you imagine what this might be like for you walking up on scene? Like, how many of you have to deal with this kind of crazy shit at work? And I'm yelling at the lady. I got my gun in my hand, and I'm screaming bloody murder at her. Please, man, please drop the knife, drop the knife. Because in police world, that's what we do. Drop the knife. We don't want them to get close to us because they could potentially hurt us. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was literally just carving up herself. I mean, that was rough, man. and she was squirting from her neck, from her arms. And for whatever reason, it wasn't anything special that I said. I was just screaming at her. I was escalating and getting louder and louder and louder. Ma'am, please drop the knife. And then finally, for whatever reason, she decided to just throw it. And she grabs this, barbershop razor and she flings it like this. And when her arm flinged up like this, I literally saw her paint the wall with her own blood. Like imagine she had a freaking a water hose in her hand, and she had her thumb on the end, and she was squirting it across the top of that 2-story living room, and it just left this ridiculous crimson path of her own blood all over the wall. And then I ran over there, I handcuffed her because that's what we have to do. And then I called in medical and said, hey, it's code 4 for medical, which means it's good for you to send in the fire department, who usually show up after everything is cool. Love you, firemen. Don't hate me. And they came in, they checked her vitals, and they transport her to UMC, which is the local hospital in Vegas where they deal with trauma type stuff. And I didn't know the story, right? I had no clue why she was doing this or what was going on until I tried to interview the male and the female in the driveway. And here's the really messed up part, right? This mom was a widower of 9/11. Her husband was in the tower, the Twin Towers, when that jet hit that plane. Sorry, the jet hit that tower and killed her husband, the one and only breadwinner in the family. And her life was destroyed when these piece of shit terrorists decided to come here and hurt us. And she was so distraught, she couldn't live in New York anymore. She got a pretty good settlement from her husband's passing. Decided to relocate to the beautiful city of Henderson, which is a great place to live, by the way. And with her settlement, she had some money. She meets a young man who befriends her, decides to be her boyfriend. And then, life is going good for her. She's happy in Henderson until one day she comes from home from work and she finds her boyfriend having relations with her daughter. And for her, that was the final straw, man. She couldn't take it no more. She said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to end this life. And she went to carving herself up like I have never seen before. Now, God bless her. She survived after her trip to the hospital. And I hope and pray she's doing well today. But imagine first you're the police officer walking on scene and having to deal with this shit. And this lady literally slitting her own throat, slitting her own wrist, and blood squirting all over the earth. But as I ride along, standing behind me, what do you think Sam was thinking when he's seeing this scene unfold? And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because, I'll never forget it. It was incredible, sad that someone has gone through so much trauma in their life that they feel like this was their only way out. And so I'll probably end this episode with just simply this. If you're going through some stuff, call somebody, call a friend, call the suicide hotline. Don't take things into your own hand. Don't try to harm yourself because of external things that you can't control. Because life's too short, life's too precious, man. Don't go there. And seek help. Because if you do seek help, you'll be able to find some good things in life. Because not even as fucked up as it may be, it's not worth killing yourself or hurting yourself. So there's a lot of resources out there that you can find. And even in law enforcement, there are many of my friends who I've had 2 of my buddies that killed themselves. Active police officers. Miss you, Sig. Miss you, Murph. And life is good as long as you try to keep your head on the right path. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for being here. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show. I have a great story coming in. We're going to be interviewing another police officer from Wisconsin next week. A lot of fun stuff coming. I got actors, I got directors, I got producers coming. Make sure you like and subscribe. Find us on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere you can find a podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It's only going to get better. I promise you that. I know this episode may not be the best, but it is the beginning. Until next time, God bless you all. and catch you on the next one.
I never imagined a love like yours. Through all the endless nights, you were the one I was searching for, looking for the one that was worth it, yeah. And all this time, you were right here by my side. You were right here. Through all the pain and the heartaches, now it's all messed up, and I'm walking out, slamming the door. And now I'm riding off into the dark on a wild horse, yeah, with nothing but my thoughts, don't know